This is Private Matters. I am Max van Praag, your host, and here on this platform we raise awareness about love, sex, and power. We are in a dungeon in Portland, very wonderful place. And my guest today is Galen Fous, a psychologist, a sex educator, author. Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here on Private Matters, Max.
So you are an educator, and part of your mission is to help other men embrace their power and their dominance. And you're actually preparing a course to help men doing that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's called Conscious Erotic Dominance for Men, and this is for het men. I'm het, and that's my tribe, heterosexual.
Okay.
You know, so that's my tribe, that's what I know, that's what I focus on, and so that's what I feel like I could best offer to the populace. I mean, and with all clarity, kink and alternative sexuality is a broad spectrum and pantheon of a whole amazing level of emerging sexualities that were never kind of acknowledged or around, and I finally, after 15 years of being in all those different tribes, got to the place where I recognized, no, I'm really just a heterosexual guy who, that's what I know, that's what I am, and that's what I can offer, and really I stay with what I know and where I can best support others.
Yes, so monogamous men, or it doesn't matter if they're monogamous or polyamorous, it doesn't matter.
In most regards, what I teach could also apply to, queer, poly, bi, trans, lesbian, gays, bis, in terms of the principles of how to engage in a conscious dominance and submissive oriented connection with someone. That kind of transcends any of the things. But in terms of other het men who, like we mentioned, some of the issues, they're not physically embodied. They don't even understand. We don't live in a culture where people live from the neck up. They don't even realize they have a body. And so therefore, when they're engaging a woman, they're not in their body. They're just in their head. They're talking a lot. They're just saying a lot of things. They're not breathing. Right. They're not just listening.
Yes.
Kind of just,
Yes.
being present with someone.
That's true. If you go to a lot of parties, there's not a lot of real grounded masculine men out there. A lot of, as somebody once said, a lot of Peter Pans running around, because the true masculine, first of all, is probably not at a party every weekend. He's maybe he is also at home working. Yeah. So the grounded masculine is rare. To see men who are really embodied and conscious.
Yeah. And again, it's about developing a practice, aspiring to those things. It's not just like automatic, because again, there's so much that's tried to extract that or push it down or been wounded around. So what I can support men is developing the practice to be conscious of their intention to be in their masculine power, which includes this idea of embodiment, and learning to get present. Includes, defining where your edges are. It requires practice to vocalize. A lot of men I work with, they're stuck in their throat. They can't just say clearly, directly what they really mean, what they want, and just say it without. And it's true for women too. We all have been choked. Our sexuality has been choked off. We don't know how to talk. And we get nervous, and it's scary.
Yes.
I remember when I was younger, and I'd go into a porn shop in my 20s. I was terrified. I'd go up to the counter with some porn mags, and I'd be literally kind of shaking and sit them down and looking over here, and the guy's going, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like,
Shame.
Yeah.
Shame.
And
yes.
The bell would ring when the door would open, and your heart jumps into your throat. And so I've had to work through all of those parts of me that carry that much fear around being authentically sexual, and it's.
And yes, being authentically sexual and not having to hide, not having to cover up or to feel like you're a bad person for what you like.
Yeah. And these are complex things that people need to work through. It's important to work through, and they can be very complicated to work through because people have been traumatized, judged, shamed, as little boys and girls mostly, and that's where we really take these things on and carry us into adulthood. And this is where we were coming back around to what we were talking about the masculine earlier. We live in a culture where boys are not initiated into responsible, mature adult masculinity and how to hold that in their communities in an honorable way. We don't have generations of the grandfathers and the grandfathers before them handing down, this code of masculinity. And especially in adolescence, all boys get initiated. They either get initiated unconsciously, without a mature adult male energy, on the streets, in the schoolyard, in the locker room, and that's a shadow masculine. That's a perpetually adolescent masculinity that's never matured, and that's why we have so much masculine dysfunctionality, is because of this lack of this concept of initiation of the masculine.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share about your journey? You've always known that this is your path to come out in this way.
Yeah, I learned about my sexuality. I became aware of my sexuality at about 5 years old, and what that looked like was this was in the 50s, the mid 50s by that time, and my parents would have guests over, dinner parties or whatever. And I would be sitting on the floor on the living room in this sea of nylon high-heeled legs coming and going and sitting down and standing up. And I just would catch a little slight glimpse of that mystery, between the two legs as they moved. And I was sitting there totally turned on and fascinated and, I could feel the yearning of it. And I knew also that it was taboo. I won't let anybody know that I'm thinking. But this is, I developed this survey called Discover Your Personal Erotic Myth, and it kind of helps people map their own territory around a lot of the things that I spoke of in terms of what your erotic storyline is and who you match up with, the counterpart to your persona, what some of the elements of it in terms of dialogue and intensities and props and locations and attire. These are all part of what one can start to learn are actually part of their own erotic myth. And so this survey, it's over 2,300 people have taken it so far. It's eliciting amazing, interesting research from the data that I compile from it, but it's also very personally helpful to help someone get clear so that when they do go into the dating pool, if they get to the point, okay, I'm going to be real about my sexuality, I'm going to be honest.
Is this in your book? This survey, or is that?
There's actually a chapter that discusses some of the research in there. One of interesting is something around 35 to 40% were engaging in their eros before puberty out of these 2,300 people.
I see.
So that's a pretty interesting data point right there in itself. But yeah, it's on my website, galenfous.com.
And that's how people can find you too. Yeah. galenfous.com.
Yes. And so you can find all the aspects of my client practice, how I coach men and or women or couples, which I've done all of those things to help them individually come to terms with their sexuality, and then as a couple join and bring themselves back into whatever that turned out looking like.
Both as a counselor and you've also assisted people as a professional dom.
For 10 years, I was a pro dom. I retired about 5 years ago from actively being a pro dom, but I was one of the few het male pro doms on the scene for quite a while.
Yes.
And that was wonderful. It was really some of the deepest work and territory I could have gone into of what was being presented.
Taking people on journeys that they would otherwise never go on.
Yeah, and dealing with all the fear, the judgment, the shame, and a lot of people wouldn't show up, they would write me. I got a block away and I had to stop, and I got so overwhelmed I had to go home. I couldn't get there. And this is the tragedy of our culture, that people are something so innate and natural and integral to who we are, that we have generated such a fear and terror of engaging it honestly. But when we don't do that, it goes into shadow and it leaks out anyway. In sneaky, risky behavior, dishonesty, being out of integrity, or overeating, over drinking, porning compulsively.
Absolutely. This is very, very important work. Yes, and I thank you for all of what you've done and for coming on my platform. It's very important, and for everybody out there, if you're not satisfied in your relationship, don't give up. Keep looking deeper. Keep looking deeper. Ask yourself who you are. Ask questions about your dark side. Take a survey, yours or somebody else's survey. Look deeper. What do you want? What's hot for you? What do you need? What didn't work about past relationships? Take some risks, and it's a rich and fascinating journey.
I totally agree. Well stated.
Thanks.